men and women of ambition, attend. In every court, in every council, and in every street, power does not belong to the gentle soul, but to the vigilant, for history teaches us, those who neglect their weaknesses invite their own ruin. I, Niccolò Machiavelli, will lay bare to you 3 frailties that make you prey to wolves. And more, how to harden yourself, so that you become the hunter, not the hunted. Perhaps you wonder, why do others outmaneuver you, betray your trust, or take advantage of your goodwill? It is not by chance. It is because you carry invisible signs of weakness that sharper minds can see. Today, I shall expose these signs and show you how to burn them away, lest you remain forever a target. Listen carefully, for this lesson may save you from a lifetime of humiliation. The first weakness that makes you a target is overexposure of your vulnerabilities. To speak plainly, those who cannot master their tongue, their expressions, their emotions, reveal far too much of themselves, and in doing so, they surrender their very armor to those who would exploit them. Consider how often men and women betray their true condition without even realizing it. A sigh at the wrong moment reveals disappointment, a nervous glance reveals fear, an uncontrolled confession reveals guilt. Every careless display is like opening a gate in the walls of your fortress, and once an enemy has seen where the cracks lie, they do not need to conquer you by strength. They conquer you by pressing the wound you have exposed yourself. You must understand that the world is not composed of saints who will respect your honesty or cradle your wounds with compassion. No, the majority of men, when they see your weakness, will feel either contempt or opportunity. Contempt, because they now regard you as less formidable, less worthy of respect. Opportunity, because your exposed frailty provides them with a lever to move you as they please. When you tell a rival that you are afraid, do not expect mercy. Expect them to sharpen their blade and strike. When you admit insecurity to a supposed friend, do not be surprised if they use it to advance themselves while holding you back. The appearance of vulnerability, repeated over time, marks you as one who can be bent, one who can be broken, one who can be conquered without resistance. Reflect upon courts of power, the palaces where kings, princes, and merchants plot. The clever courtier never reveals his entire mind. He is a man of masks, revealing just enough to charm, just enough to persuade, but never enough to give another man the keys to his undoing. The fool, however, lays bare his heart as if it were noble to do so, and he wonders later why others outplay him at every turn. He mistakes openness for strength, but it is nothing more than naivete. To expose your inner world is not noble, it is dangerous. The wise conceal more than they reveal, and in this concealment lies their safety. Consider how many betrayals in history began not with overwhelming force, but with whispered secrets. When a man confides too deeply, when he reveals his discontent with an ally, his doubts about his ruler, his hidden ambition, he is already digging the grave of his own security. His words, once spoken, belong not to him but to those who heard them, and men, ever hungry for advantage, will not hesitate to use them at the precise moment they yield the greatest reward. If you make yourself transparent, you grant others the script to your downfall. And yet, most people do precisely this, for they long to be understood, they crave sympathy, they cannot bear the silence of their own hidden thoughts. But mark me, sympathy is a luxury that power cannot afford. Those who wish to rise must learn to govern themselves before they can govern others. Ask yourself this when you sit in conversation. Do you listen more than you speak? Or do you betray every corner of your mind in the eagerness to be heard? The art of silence is one of the greatest arts of self-preservation. The man who listens gathers knowledge. The man who speaks carelessly spends it. When you are silent, you hold all the cards. Others do not know your fears, your doubts, your true desires. They must guess, and in their guessing they reveal more of themselves than you ever reveal of yourself. But when you speak too freely, you turn your cards face up upon the table, and you invite others to play against you with certainty of victory. I have seen rulers undone, not by armies, but by their own tongues. A prince who confesses his uncertainty to advisors quickly finds himself manipulated by those very men. A merchant who admits weakness in trade becomes subject to exploitation by sharper competitors. Even in the quiet world of personal relations, the lover who declares his desperation makes himself unworthy. For desire without restraint is contemptible. To overexpose yourself is to hand your power to another, to declare openly that you cannot hold your own secrets, and therefore you cannot be trusted with the secrets of others. There are those who argue that honesty binds men together, that openness creates loyalty. This is a pleasant fiction for poets, but in the realm of power, it is a fable that destroys more lives than it saves. Loyalty is not born of openness, it is born of necessity, of calculated bonds, of fear, of respect. A man may respect your strength, he will not respect your weakness. A man may fear your power, he will never fear your confessions. Therefore, you must learn to wear a mask. Not a mask of falsehood for every word you speak, but a mask of discipline. Show others what you wish them to see, and conceal what you wish them never to touch. Overexposure of vulnerabilities also extends beyond words. Your gestures, your posture, your very demeanor betray you. A bowed head reveals submission. Restless hands reveal anxiety. Hasty speech reveals desperation. A wise man disciplines even his body, so that in public he appears always composed, always sovereign of himself. For if you cannot master the theater of your own presence, you give others the impression that you cannot master the theater of the world. And impressions, once formed, are more powerful than truth itself. If you desire to avoid being a target, cultivate restraint. Speak less than you know, reveal less than you feel, and allow others to imagine your strength rather than expose your weakness. The fortress that falls is not the one with the strongest walls, but the one whose gates are left carelessly ajar. Guard your gates, guard your soul, guard your secrets. For the first weakness that invites conquest is the reckless overexposure of your vulnerabilities. Now, let us turn to the second weakness, one that is far more subtle, yet far more dangerous: dependence on others. Hear me well, for it is a chain that many gladly fasten around their own necks, smiling as they do so, not realizing that the moment they lean too heavily on another, they have already surrendered the very crown of their independence. The man who builds his life, his fortune, his ambitions upon the shoulders of others is a man already defeated. For when those shoulders bend or break, he too collapses into ruin. Dependence comes in many forms. It may be the prince who trusts too much in the loyalty of his advisors, believing that their interests will forever align with his own. It may be the merchant who relies on a single partner to secure his wealth, imagining that prosperity shared will always remain prosperity protected. It may even be the ordinary man who looks to friends or kin for every decision, unable to act without counsel, unable to stand without support. In each case, the result is the same: power, once his own, has slipped into the hands of others. He no longer moves of his own will, but is moved by those upon whom he depends. Mark me here. Alliances, friendships, and partnerships are not in themselves dangerous, but dependence upon them is poison. For alliances shift like the tides, and friendships are governed by interest more than sentiment. The wise man understands this truth: men are not bound by eternal loyalty, but by necessity. Today they need you, tomorrow they may not. Today they stand beside you, tomorrow they may stand against you. If it serves their advantage, if you have built your foundation on their support, then you are like a castle built upon sand, steady only until the waves return. History is littered with the wreckage of rulers, undone by their reliance on others. Consider the prince who entrusts his soldiers entirely to the loyalty of their commander. The commander, seeing himself indispensable, grows in ambition, and soon he is no longer servant but rival. Consider the republics that relied too much upon the protection of foreign allies, who in the moment of greatest need discovered that aid comes slowly, when it must be carried across borders and seas. Consider even the nobleman who depends upon the favor of the people, who cheer him in prosperity, but abandon him at the first sign of decline. He who rests on others for his strength is never truly strong. He merely borrows what may be reclaimed at any moment. The cruelest trick of dependence is that it feels safe. There is comfort in believing that someone else will carry the weight of your burdens. There is relief in leaning on the promises of allies, the affection of friends, the supposed loyalty of servants. But that comfort is a trap, for it lulls you into weakness. It dulls your edge. It robs you of the hunger that drives independence. And when the moment of crisis arrives, when betrayal comes, you find yourself naked and unprepared, for you had entrusted your fate to hands that were never bound to yours. The wise learn to invert this condition. Instead of depending on others, make others depend on you. This is the truest form of security. When others need your counsel, your resources, your strength, then they are bound to you, and even their betrayal will harm them as much as it harms you. But when you need them more than they need you, you place the knife directly in their hand and invite them to hold it against your throat. Dependence is slavery disguised as friendship. Independence is mastery disguised as solitude. You may ask, how then does one free oneself from this weakness? The answer lies not in rejecting every bond, but in mastering every bond. Rely on others only to the degree that they cannot afford to abandon you. Accept assistance only in ways that increase your strength rather than diminish it. If a prince takes an ally, let him ensure that ally needs him more than he needs the ally. If a merchant forms a partnership, let him structure it so that the partner cannot prosper without him. If a man surrounds himself with friends, let him be the one they look to for guidance and provision, not the other way around. To hold the upper hand in dependence is to hold the very key of power. Yet the ordinary man commits the opposite mistake. He seeks patrons, benefactors, protectors, and clings to them with desperation. He kneels, he flatters, he confesses his inability to stand alone, believing that by surrendering his strength he gains security. But observe what happens in such relationships. The protector grows contemptuous, for dependence breeds disdain. The benefactor grows wary, for neediness drains loyalty. The patron grows arrogant, for he knows his subject cannot live without him. Thus dependence does not only rob a man of his freedom, it robs him of respect. He becomes an object of pity at best, of ridicule at worst. And from pity and ridicule there is no path to power. Even in the most intimate relations, dependence corrupts the bond. The lover who clings too tightly suffocates affection. The friend who cannot act without counsel becomes a burden. The servant who seeks constant validation ceases to be useful. Human nature despises weakness when it demands too much from strength. Therefore, to protect yourself from contempt, you must guard against needing others more than they need you. Understand this well. The world admires the man who stands alone, who walks with certainty, who does not crumble when denied support. Such a man draws others to him willingly, for independence is magnetic. People sense the strength of one who governs himself, and they wish to align with him, because they see in him a foundation more stable than their own. But the man who cannot stand alone is avoided, for to tie oneself to him is to risk being dragged into his fall. Independence attracts, dependence repels. The greatest test of character, then, is whether you can strip away your reliance on others without sinking into isolation. It is not solitude that grants strength, but sovereignty. A man who stands alone because he must is pitiable. A man who stands alone because he chooses to is formidable. To cultivate such sovereignty requires discipline, patience, and foresight. You must train yourself to provide for your own needs, to guard your own thoughts, to take responsibility for your own destiny. You must learn to carry what others cannot, to endure what others will not, and to build what others dare not. In this way, you become the axis upon which others revolve, not the shadow that clings to their light. Now we arrive at the third weakness, and it is one that destroys more men than any blade, more princes than any rebellion, more merchants than any ruined fortune. It is the neglect of the appearance of power. Listen carefully, for this lesson strikes at the heart of how men judge. And men, let me remind you, do not judge by truth but by sight. They are creatures swayed by the theater of life, not the substance behind the curtain. You may be strong within, wise beyond measure, armed with resources that could level your enemies. Yet if you fail to appear powerful, you invite challenges from those who believe you are weak. To appear vulnerable is to summon predators, for the wolf does not wait to discover whether the lamb is secretly a lion. He attacks the moment he sees weakness in its gait. Consider this truth: the appearance of strength often outweighs actual strength. A fortress that looks impenetrable is seldom attacked. Even if its walls are hollow, a prince who projects authority seldom faces rebellion. Even if his treasury runs dry, a commander who carries himself with certainty inspires soldiers to fight, even if their rations are low. In contrast, a leader who looks uncertain, who speaks hesitantly, who allows doubt to stain his image, creates rebellion with his very presence, even if his armies are vast and his coffers overflowing. The perception of power is more decisive than the possession of it, for men act not on hidden truths, but on what they see and believe. This is why appearances are not trivial ornaments. They are weapons. They are shields that guard your position, and swords that cut down opposition before it dares to rise. To neglect appearances, to walk through the world without care for how you are seen, is to strip yourself of armor in the battlefield of life. Think of the man who is competent, skilled, disciplined, yet dresses carelessly, speaks timidly, and carries himself like a servant rather than a sovereign. His abilities remain unseen, his merits overlooked, his authority questioned. Another man, with less ability but more mastery of appearances, rises above him. He dresses with care, speaks with confidence, holds his posture with command. Men rally to him not because he is greater, but because he looks greater. And in this world, looking great often becomes the very path to being great. Neglecting appearances invites contempt. Men despise those who seem weak, even when they are not. They mock those who look foolish, even when they are wise. They challenge those who appear timid, even when they have hidden courage. Understand that the masses do not investigate deeply. They accept the surface as the truth. A ruler who appears strong keeps his throne, while one who appears weak will lose it, even if his armies remain loyal. A merchant who appears prosperous attracts investors, while one who looks desperate repels them, even if his accounts are sound. A man who appears confident in society gains respect, while one who looks uncertain is disregarded, even if he possesses greater knowledge. To neglect appearances, therefore, is to surrender influence without even realizing it. You may protest, saying, "Should we not value substance over display? Should we not be concerned with reality rather than illusion?" But to speak this way is to misunderstand human nature. Men are not philosophers seeking the hidden essence of truth. They are creatures of impulse, sight, and imagination. They decide whom to follow, whom to trust, whom to fear, based on what they see before them, not what lies beneath. The wise man does not complain about this. He uses it. He understands that to appear powerful is to be treated as powerful, and being treated as powerful often becomes indistinguishable from actually possessing power itself. Even silence can betray or confirm the appearance of power. If a ruler speaks too often, too recklessly, he diminishes the aura of authority. His voice becomes common, his words lose weight. But if he speaks rarely, with deliberation, and with firmness, every syllable echoes with power. It is not simply what he says, but how he appears while saying it. His tone, his posture, his gaze, all are instruments of theater that shape the perception of his rule. Neglecting such details invites ruin. A single gesture, a careless expression, a poorly chosen word, can unravel years of cultivated authority, for appearances are fragile and must be guarded as one guards a crown. Consider also the realm of fear. Fear is not born from the substance of power alone, but from its appearance. A city will surrender to an army it believes is invincible, even if that army is starving. A rival will hesitate to challenge a man who looks unshakable, even if that man trembles in secret. A subject will obey a prince who projects absolute command, even if that prince is plagued by doubts. Fear thrives on appearances, and neglecting them robs you of one of the greatest tools of control. If you do not appear to inspire fear, you will inspire contempt. And contempt, once born, is the seed of rebellion. It is also true in matters of love, business, and daily life. The man who neglects his appearance finds doors closed to him, not because his essence is lacking, but because others cannot see beyond the mask he has failed to wear. We live in a world that judges swiftly, and in such a world, you must learn to craft the image you present. The wise man sculpts his appearance with the same care as the sculptor shapes marble, for he knows men see the statue, not the stone within. If he neglects it, others impose upon him the image of weakness, and once that image is fixed, it is harder to escape than chains of iron. Remember, too, that enemies seek openings, and the easiest opening is the appearance of weakness. If they believe you lack courage, they will test you. If they believe you lack wealth, they will exploit you. If they believe you lack influence, they will move against you. By contrast, if they see no weakness, if your image is a wall of strength and composure, they hesitate, they delay. And in delay, you gain time to fortify your true position. The appearance of power, therefore, is not a deception, but a strategy. It is the art of ruling the minds of men before they ever dare to challenge you. Neglecting appearances is also a form of arrogance, for it assumes that men will see your true worth without you shaping it. But the world is not so generous. Men are distracted, self-interested, and shallow in their judgments. They will not search for your hidden strengths unless you force them to see a reason. If you appear insignificant, they will treat you as insignificant. If you appear commanding, they will grant you obedience before you even demand it. Thus the wise do not leave appearances to chance. They cultivate them, polish them, guard them as treasures. For the man who appears powerful is half victorious before the contest begins, while the man who neglects appearances is half defeated before his struggle has even started. Know you have seen the three weaknesses that mark a man for conquest: the reckless overexposure of his vulnerabilities, the dangerous dependence upon others, and the fatal neglect of appearances. These are not small errors, they are chasms into which empires have fallen, rulers have perished, and ordinary men have been stripped of dignity and freedom. The world is not merciful, nor is it guided by fairness. It is guided by perception, necessity, and the relentless contest for advantage. To survive, you must master yourself, guard your inner world, and reveal only what strengthens you. Build your strength so that you rely upon no one, while others find themselves unable to move without you. And finally, cloak yourself in the armor of appearances, for men will always act upon what they see, and he who commands sight commands power. Remember this well in the theater of life. The wolves circle endlessly, and only those who master these lessons walk among them without fear.